Hello, everybody. It's George from Ireland. Well, thank you for coming back to my channel. I'll talk about the police in the United Kingdom, but some of these problems, I suppose, we have in the Republic of Ireland. Amongst the Garda Síochána, it's not as bad, really. But anyway, the UK has a shortage of police officers. It's very difficult to get in. If you apply, they'll take at least a year to look at you. You used to have a degree to be a police officer. I think it's been relaxed. The police community support officers, and we've got powers of detention, not powers of arrest. People have panned them as walking spin, but I think they're somewhat effective. Anyway, so crime rates are going up and up in the United Kingdom. The fascinating thing is they fell from about 1994 onwards for almost 20 years and started rising about 10 years ago and rising, particularly shoplifting, which has in effect been decriminalized as really a tiny fraction were ever caught. I know shoplifting is not the most serious offense. And obviously, I wouldn't want someone to go to jail for first time shoplifting. But if someone's done it thousands of times, there needs to be a significant penalty. Now, I want to give people a caution, a fine, community service, be reluctant to imprison people, but eventually you're going to have to do it. Anyway, you see how the UK is short of police officers and they're wasting their time going on all sorts of courses, like intellectualizing it like loads of other things. On trans courses and on racism courses, are they supposed to be anti-racism courses, really? And they're just speaking in this sub-Marxist rhetoric, pushing leftist ideology. Police officers are not allowed to join the police if they belong to lots of organizations, particularly right-wing organizations. So like almost everything else in the public sector, it's really to spearhead leftist ideas. So which is sickening. They are there to police protests, and I realize that needs to be done. Two-tier policing is absolutely flagrant. When human rights activists are trying to save children, they're spat at, insulted, threatened, assaulted, and so on. Police do nothing about that. They come down on it like a ton of bricks on human rights activists who are trying to save children. So it's very worrying. Now, thousands of police officers have been dismissed over the last 10 years for various things, some of them rightly, but some of them for making contentious comments, for cracking jokes in private conversations, and they shouldn't be. These people could be otherwise be superb police officers saying, well, it'll undermine public confidence in the police. Okay, a few other politically correct brigade might find this distasteful. Others wouldn't. Some would even approve. Whether the police are pushing a far left agenda, well, that's absolutely fine, even though that would upset right wingers. So I don't object to a police officer cracking a joke, even one I find rebarbative in private. And what they say on WhatsApp, they're dismissed for that. It's very worrying that they should be spied on that anyone should be jailed for cracking jokes. Now, some of the jokes I'm talking about are sick jokes. I agree with that, but really, that's not what the police is about. Arresting people for their sense of humor, however distasteful, and we don't have prison space for people who are actually dangerous. There's some police officers who were sacked and they really should have been for possessing child pornography or things like that. Um, so like 0.5% of police officers in England and Wales. I'm not sure about in Northern Ireland and Scotland, but that's serious when we don't have enough people. But so often they're not on frontline duties because they're away on a course all the time. We made it something so academic, like almost everything else. The police are reluctant to use force, and of course they should be hesitant. For force is supposed to be a last resort, not a first resort. I saw a peaceful protester being set and assaulted in Westminster in Parliament Square. I was horrified. This is about a year and a half ago. I thought the police simply didn't do that. And I saw it happen in front of my own eyes. I always brought up to hold the police in the highest regard, and for no good reason, knocking him to the ground and handcuffing him, dragging him off, taking away his liberty. I suppose because he was questioning, feminazi shibboleths. So it's all very worrying, and that's why crime runs rampant. You can't get the police to deal with a burglary. They might send you a letter say, well, if you want counseling, yeah, do you want to just record a crime number so you can make an insurance claim? Bicycle stolen, mobile phone stolen. They just don't want to know, even when you can track the thing. So that's why they're quite often useless. Now, I can't completely blame the police officers because it's their political bias to set the agenda, say they've got to meet whatever targets, and they've got to as I say, to be ideological enforcers for leftism. And the shocking thing about it is often that was under a conservative government. as Kim Badenoch correctly said, the former Conservative administration talked right and governed left, and it's only going to get worse under Sir Keir Starmer's administration. Another thing is, now there was an absolute monster in the police, Wayne Couzens, who abused his position as a police officer to arrest, rape, and murder a woman and dispose of her body. Now, fortunately, he's serving life imprisonment without possibility of parole. But the trouble is, that's then used to besmirch the population, all the police officers, well, all particularly the Metropolitan Police, that's to say, in London. And I remember speaking to a leftist solicitor who worked in the civil service, surprise, surprise about this. And I was saying, well, Cressida Dick, who was then commissioner of the Metropolitan Police, she shouldn't resign because how's she to know she's got was over 30,000 officers, and that's not her fault, right? You can't guarantee what would happen again. Saying to this woman, how about if in your organization, if someone else committed that crime, I suppose you'd resign if it was one of your underlings? How would you know that's going to happen? And people had cracked some distasteful jokes about him. There were some nasty rumors going around about him, but no one could guess that he was going to do that. It was just not predictable. And unfortunately, there are bad eggs in every occupation. They'll be amongst dentists and bus drivers and goodness, I don't know, farmers and shopkeepers. So there are lots of problems with the police in the United Kingdom, and that's why crime is quite high. I know there was a horrific case of a police sergeant, part of the police of Metropolis, David Carrick, who committed crimes, including sex crimes, over 12 women. But obviously, these are completely unrepresentative. And we have to look at the good police officers who would never do that kind of thing, or completely honorable, who are saviors. Yeah, and then they just waste their time harassing people for questioning the establishment instead of actually helping people. Now, unless you mention the words gun or knife, you won't get to come or possibly child, missing child. One of the few things I commend them for is when people with children have been missing, including from a family I knew, and the police were there in 10 minutes. Fortunately, they found the girl very, very quickly. I think the idea that the police are pushing is overblown, but amplify those who the narrative, I think whom you mean, the narrative benefits. Right. Well, I don't have a datum on this one, but they should never be policing social media posts unless someone's actually inciting a crime. And you might say even racist posts on Facebook, disgustful though they are. Sorry, we just don't have time for that. There are more urgent matters. There are bigger fish to fry about violent crime, which they're not chasing up. Crime when lots of property is stolen, things like that. So it's overblown. What's your evidence that it is overblown? By the way, illegal criminal, and perhaps you, that benefit, that narrative is benefiting you as you're an illegal criminal, according to yourself. So perhaps we should say you don't have to have a degree. They never had to have degrees till the 90s. They could be excellent officers beforehand. That doesn't mean you're particularly intelligent, or as we give out degrees like confetti these days. It just means that they spent some time in a Maoist madrasa, being indoctrinated in left-wingery. How dispiriting. Is it ever going to change? Bring back the RUC. Finn McCool, do I pronounce it correctly? The Royal Ulster Constabulary, in case you don't know, that was the police force in Northern Ireland that upheld freedom, that saved democracy, that defeated terrorism, that achieved glorious victories for human rights. The RUC were often castigated, assassination of the character as well as assassination of the body by terrorist organizations, loyalist terrorist organizations, and Republican terrorist organizations. Now, of course, the RUC was not entirely above criticism. No organization of several thousand people is perfect, especially when they're driven beyond human tolerance by the barbarities to which they were subjected. Anyway, thank you so much for subscribing to my channel. Make sure you subscribe on Patreon, then on PayPal, georgecallahan79 at gmail.com. So please do some real police work, detecting crime, deterring crime, helping people, and not harassing people. Goodbye then.